Okay. Pretty good first week of practice. We kind of went through a game planning preparations week with doing some TCU work. So we were able to get kind of the first week or the first run of the preparation done in full cycle through today, and then we're going to start on Monday. And go through another cycle of it for our second time, and then obviously we've got a game on Friday. So we feel we're in pretty good shape with our health, and getting a couple guys back. So Tommy Brown is he was very promising, and with what the work he was doing, that we think he's going to be able to play. Same thing with RJ. We think that he's going to be able to play. With the work that they've done. Nigel's working, so we're still waiting to see if he's got to turn one more step of his corner to make a good turn, to feel good about him, which we think there's still since we're about a week away, he's got a good chance to make it as well. So we feel like we're going to be in fairly good health going into the first game. Feel good about that, so everything's going good.
Do you know about Trevor Woods yet at this point?
Trevor's been practicing. So far, so good. Looks good right now. We've monitored his reps, but he's ramping up. You can tell that he's kind of getting himself back into playing shape, and but he should be ready to go.
As you begin to scout TCU, what challenges will that team potentially propose, and how are you adjusting, and what are you seeing from the film?
What's challenging for us, particularly defensively, is they're gonna play with 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and they're all distinctive types. They're all pretty athletic. One has outstanding speed. The one has really good speed, and the other one's a pretty good athlete himself. So they have an athlete at that position, which is a challenge. They got some skill on the outside with some guys that run real well. And they got a runner that I think is a really dynamic player who's good out of the backfield catching the ball too, versus running the ball from the backfield. So I think offensively, they do a really good job of creating space, and we're going to have to do a great job of minimizing some of that space and tackling well. And I think that's always the biggest challenge at first game. You see it in NFL preseason, where there's a lot of missed tackles in that first preseason game. It's kind of the same thing that happens in college. The first game's a little bit rough about getting used to tackling full speed, all the time when you go through camp, not doing that all the time. So, but I would say that, offensively, those are our challenges, is really to, try to keep a lid on their skill and not, let them create too many big plays, that sort of thing. For their defense and our offense, we decided to not to announce, a starting quarterback, just because I think it helps us in our process of what we do for this week, and it keeps them having to prepare for both. Since they, I'm sure they're digging for information on the last time JT played, and obviously, what the work of what Bilu played last year. So we did talk to both of them. They know what our game plan is in terms of who's starting. But I think it's wise for us to not do that announcement at all, okay? But offensively, we feel great about our skill. Our depth at receiver is really improved quite a bit. We feel like we have some really good tangible depth there. Our runners have had good camps with both Alex and Dion, and and Charlie and Jay Lee, and we have some guys that we think that can run the ball with some consistency. With Tommy being back into the equation at the offensive line position, our depth there is actually the best it could be. So we feel against this defense that does a lot of, they do some very unique things. They're an odd front team, but they do play some 4 down. They play with that extra safety, kind of that 3-3-5 defensive scheme that a lot of college systems are kind of using. San Diego State was one of those systems we were used to out here, and same thing with New Mexico when Rocky Long was coaching. I still is actually, but it's kind of that 3-3-5 system. That's what they do, and It's challenging in the, in terms of passing the ball because there's not a lot of air. If you can imagine 5 DBs across the, it makes it look a little bit crowded until they separate themselves on different cover structures. But it's a challenging defense. It's built not to give you a big play, and it's built to make offenses take the long road. And sometimes offenses aren't patient enough to take the long road because they make a mistake by trying to force a football, force a throw somewhere, and they get a chance to capitalize on that poor decision. So it's going to be a great game. Obviously both teams have enough experience coming back on both sides. We've had a great summer. I'm sure they feel like they've had a great summer with the new coaching staff there, and so it's about time to tee it up and see who's prepared the best.
With TCU, that's a program in the last 5-10 years that has a history of NFL talent, especially at wide receiver. How do you feel you guys match up in the secondary against them?
They have some really good receivers, just similarly probably to ours. They probably have a couple guys that had some the returning production. With a couple guys that have had like 600, 700, 800 yards, from last season. But it's like anything, we have to do a great job of understanding their skill sets and what they're good at, and try to defend the things that they're good at, and force them to make plays, to neutralize some of their strengths. So, they got 2 particular guys that can run really well. We have a couple guys that are very similar to that too, but no one knows their names yet. But these 2 guys are, number 4, number 8, or number 4, number 1. Are pretty dynamic guys, good size, good speed. They can make plays anywhere on the field. So we just need to know where they're at and make sure we're paying attention to them.
You brought up the term experience. Do you have any young guys who might not have as much experience that you think are ready to take the lead and take a leadership role coming this Friday against CCU?
To take a leadership role, probably in their first game, that'll be a little more challenging for a first-year player. But I think my goal for those, we got a number of guys that are going to be playing this Friday for the first time. I just want them to do their job. I'm not asking them to kind of do any extra thing other than it's your first college game in Folsom Field, and it's going to be loud, and there'll be kind of a lot of anxiety and all that stuff. I got to get them to hone in and focus on their job, and so we haven't put guys in kind of like leadership roles to do that yet. I think for those young freshmen, we're just trying to, we need them, just like we did a year ago. We just need them to make sure they understand their job and their role in performing. So we have a lot of confidence in them because they're very capable. But I do know that it's, I remember my first college game. It was kind of all my big eyes everywhere, looking at everything. So I'm sure they're going to feel the same way.
You mentioned that you're going to have to prepare for 3 quarterbacks at TCU. Did that play into your decision to not make an announcement at all? The fact that, hey, if we're going to have to prepare for 3 guys, at least you guys have to prepare for 2?
Not really. Not really. Just our competition, it didn't have anything to do with what they're doing, but the way that we, that we felt was the competition was so close. Literally, I feel if you're going to try to beat a guy out, particularly, your statistical numbers and your production and your consistency has to be above and beyond who you're unseating. And that wasn't the case because they both competed really hard, and really had the same statistical numbers what we had. They both were kind of, Bealey was better in this category, JT was better in this category. It was kind of like that. It was very close. Not enough to unseat Bealey, but it just gave us the impression that, we feel good that they kind of feed off of each other. That's why we're trying to leave our options open with both of those guys. And they understand what we're trying to do from a game plan standpoint. Just like I told them, they're both going to play. And we think that that's a good thing, so that's how we'll prepare through the week, and we'll see how that looks on Friday night.
What has Phil done with the receiver rooms so far in his tenure, and kind of how much does his work with them give you confidence in the guys that are going to be asked to step up into bigger roles this year, and even guys like Daniel Arias who have been around as well, but are
I think the biggest thing, and I think all of you have noticed, is that Phil is such a disciplinarian and big, strong fundamentalist with technique, fundamentals, discipline. You know, those are things that I think really, quite frankly, we're missing, you know, at this position for the last couple of years. And he does a great job of pressing that envelope of that's the expectation, that's the standard. And I think the players appreciate that type of coaching about being hard, you know, hard on them and have high expectations for them. So I think that group is really going to blossom into a really, really productive group for us. And I think Phil has done a great job with building the confidence and developing those young guys too.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.